I know, the last thing the internet needs right now is another middle-aged white guy giving his hot take on the latest offering from the Star Wars universe, the TV show called The Acolyte. But I'm not self-aware enough to know any better, so I'm gonna do it anyway. A couple of caveats. First, I'm gonna buck what seems to be the general consensus on the internet and tell you why The Acolyte is actually pretty great. And second, while I have seen a whole bunch of videos on YouTube grumbling about how terrible the show is, I actually let my Disney Plus subscription lapse, so I haven't seen the show. But that's kind of the point. You see, this particular Star Wars series isn't for me. Straight, white, middle-aged men, amazingly, are not the target audience for this show. And not only is that fine, it's actually pretty cool. So despite the fact that there may be some disappointed middle-aged guys, is it really so bad that they made a show for a new demographic? Like, would it be so terrible if a few black girls or fat little boys got into Star Wars thanks to a show like this? I mean, Star Wars was made for kids in 1976, and it still mostly is. But that generational handoff can be painful or disorienting at times. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that middle-aged men or people that grew up loving this movie series can't hate this show. I mean, subjectively, for me, this one actually does look pretty bad. I mean, spoiler alert, there's a Jedi that gets killed by a thrown knife. Now, I'm used to Jedis blocking blaster shots. So, anyway, I digress. I think what I'm reacting to is the videos I see on YouTube of a guy saying, Episode 1 is terrible. Episode 2 is a travesty. Episode 3 is the worst one yet. It's like, man, if you hate it so much, just stop watching this thing. It'll be fine. They'll make more stuff for you. They'll probably make stuff that you like. This one's just not for you, it seems. Personally, I like it when they try new things with the Star Wars universe. But obviously, we're not all gonna like everything that they make. There are gonna be some misses. Like last year they did Andor, which was stylistically very different. It was the first one that actually seemed like it wasn't particularly made for kids. And I really enjoyed that one. I think I binge watched it straight through. A little bit before that, there was a lot of excitement around The Mandalorian. When it came out, you're thinking like, this is Boba Fett and Yoda. Two of the coolest characters. They made a new show of it. And in the beginning, there was a lot of excitement and it was pretty cool. But for me, I actually thought it started to get kind of boring after a couple of seasons. And I kind of tuned out. Then there's the Boba Fett thing, which you're like, this has to be amazing, but it was really boring. I didn't even end up watching it. And so when I came back to The Mandalorian, I had no idea what was going on, because apparently I'd missed half a season of The Mandalorian that they put in the middle of Boba Fett. Yeah, it's just not all going to work. It's all right. I know that people that grew up with Star Wars can think that it's sacred, but it's not. It's actually exactly the opposite now. It belongs to everyone, and like all cultural benchmarks, to be referenced and built upon by each generation. So this is a little bit different, but when Fortnite came out with a Greek god season with Hades and Zeus as NPCs, it's not desecrating canon mythology, it's introducing these characters and stories to a new generation in a modern way. But just as those Greek gods were originally worshipped as, well, gods, so too, Star Wars will never have the same impact as it did when it was new and we were children. My two young boys just came out of their Star Wars phase after about 18 months. That's all it lasted. I think my Star Wars phase ended at about the same time. Only mine lasted about 45 years longer. And just because I was 5 years old when the first Star Wars movie came out, and it was such a big part of my childhood. Doesn't mean that every Star Wars movie and show that they make has to be made especially for me. I mean, letting middle-aged men make Star Wars movies is how you get the prequels.